up right now, then go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Ta, ta, tar, I want it, ta. Ta, ta, tar, I want it, ta. Wait a second, my audio is way too hot. Let's just dig that down, dig it down, ba 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 dee ba doo ba da. Down, 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 bring it down. It's really, really hot, hot, Mike. Hot, 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 I just am loud, loud, loud. It's a little dark in here, too. It's a little dark. Oh, my God. Tar. Okay, so this is a very quick stream, because I just wanted to talk about Tar for a minute. Also, I had a job today, and I did not consider it going over schedule, and I now have about 40 minutes before I need to leave for another thing. Let me just make sure everything. That looks pretty good, actually. Well, hot diggity fuck. So yeah, I saw Tar, and it just so happened to be the same day I started, Butrin. I started a new medication to help with my general mental state that has plagued me for most of my life, and so I got a Wellbutrin, and I took my first dose, and I don't think that it did anything, because that's one of those medications that takes a minute to really start working. But also, I'm not entirely convinced that I didn't that I did not have a very big what's the word? I feel like it might have affected me quite a bit. Either that or placebo effect. I don't know, but anyway. So I see Tar. So I take my new medication at like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something like that, p.m. And I decide I'm going to go see Tar because I need to start watching all the... I'm not going to... I don't think I'll spoil anything, Brian. I will say that I will get into a few details of like thematic importance, and I'll talk a bit about what the film is not, but I will do my best to not spoil it beyond the very base premise. So that's how I'm gonna go about this, because I know a lot of people probably who watch my channel have not seen Tar, so I'm not gonna spoil things, but I can't guarantee you'll go in fresh. So like any review, there's stuff about the film, but I'm not gonna get crazy about it. I want to just talk about the broad stuff. I also just don't have time to talk about before I'm gonna continue my story, but I don't have time to get into all the intricacies of Tar. So really, it makes more sense to do a spoiler talk another time, because it's that good. So I think what I'll do is I'll do the spoiler-free talk now, and then after I get that beautiful fucking sexy 4K and I get to watch it again, because I would like to watch this movie a lot of times, I'll do a spoiler talk then. Maybe we can do it around like the Oscar like that whole thing. Maybe that can be like a tie-in or something. I don't know, but so spoiler-free. Anyway, so I decide that day that I'm gonna go see Tar, because I just done the Oscars live stream, and I was like, man, I need to get on this shit. And Tar, it was like, well, I got to knock a big boy out first, right off the bat, 2.5 hours, let's do this. And I look it up, and there's fuckity 2 showings in Las Vegas. 2 showings. One is at 2 p.m., and one is at 9:40 p.m. And I know for a fact I cannot do the 2 p.m., and I merely do not want to do the 9:40, so I go to the 9:40 for this 2.5 hour movie. I talked about this on a previous stream. And let me just adjust this real quick. And so I go to this 9:40 screening. I think I actually streamed and then went directly to the screening. And I was convinced that I was going to get a little drowsy, because it's a 2.5 hour movie about a conductor. And look, I haven't seen In the Bedroom, but I've seen Little Children, and based purely on that one film, I love Todd Field, but I'm not convinced that I'm going to be able to like really, really be able to pay attention. I feel like I'm going to go into this movie and I'm going to just start like, I was thinking of a far lesser film. When I went to Sundance one year and I saw Catcher. The Catcher Was a Spy with Paul Rudd, and I fell asleep multiple times during the screening because it was like an 8 a.m. showing, and we had like it had taken us so long to get back to our Airbnb, and we had to wake up so early that I had like no sleep. I think we actually it was after a midnight screening too. So I remember falling asleep multiple times during The Catcher Was a Spy, and I was like, oh, please don't let that happen. I'm an old man. I can't handle these 2.5 hour late shows. But I had done it with Glass Onion. Glass Onion, obviously a different type of film, a much more popcorn kind of film. And I thought, okay, let's just try this out. So I go to the 940. And when I tell you that I was rapt the entire time, oh my God. Tar was everything I didn't know I needed. Now, to give you a little bit more context, I had not watched any trailer for Tar. I had not read really anything. I knew that there was something about either Me Too or the cancel culture or something involving those words in the film. I knew that. And that was really all I had going for me going into the film. Was I knew that and I knew Cate Blanchett, and I knew Todd Field, and I knew she was maybe a conductor. That was my full knowledge, and I know that's an Oscar nominee. So that's all I had. And so the movie starts, and there's one shot, and then it goes to it does acknowledgments of all of the crew, but none of the cast, and I believe not Todd Field. It's just like the below the line people, and it's basically it's the full credits of the movie basically before you get to the rest of the film. Sorry if that is a spoiler. I don't think it is. And right off the bat, because it's a very befuddling initial shot, and then this, and I'm just like, okay, what the fuck are we doing? What is this movie? What am I in for? And so the movie starts proper, and basically the film is about Lydia Tarr, who is a famed conductor, and she there's a full it felt like 20 fucking minutes. It was not 20 minutes, but it felt like 20 minutes of her talking to this guy from the New Yorker in this NPR-esque atmosphere at some college with like a bunch of fucking, liberal arts students or not liberal arts, maybe music students, but, very, that kind of NPR crowd at a college. And she's talking about her career and talking, up all these conductors and what conducting means, and she's dropping names and things that I've never fucking heard of. And immediately, as far as like the references in the film, I was in the weeds. And what I'll say to anyone going into Tar is, if you feel like you're in the weeds with the constant name dropping of conductors, talking about various music theory things, don't worry about it. You're supposed to be in the weeds to some degree. I know, based on further research after watching the movie, that everything they say makes some sort of sense. But that's not the point. The point of the film is not to understand all the bullshit that Lydia Tarr and whoever the fuck Mark Strong's character was named, and all the other people. What they say doesn't matter, really, as far as the name dropping. And so the film starts with this long-ass interview, and I started to clue in pretty early on that this movie was a bit more subversive than I was being led on to believe. Because all I knew was the conductor angle and the Me Too, the cancel culture stuff. Regarding that, this movie does tackle cancel culture, and it has a very nuanced approach to that. There's a scene in particular that I know has riled quite a few kind of liberal leftist feathers because it's seen as an anti-Me Too sequence. And certainly it is, the character within the scene is certainly lambasting elements of specifically cancel culture, and sort of, I guess, neoliberal politics and how we view famous people. There's the whole thing where, like, you look at someone from the past and they did something that was really shitty, but they also were super influential. How do we deal with that? And the argument being put forth in the scene is of, well, do we or don't we allow ourselves to interact with that material that these famous but shitty people created? And it's an interesting moment because I think that in that moment you're supposed to take Lydia Tarr's side, and I don't think that doing so is either the wrong or correct way of viewing the film. This is a very, I think that going in, you need to know that you don't need to know the music shit. You don't need to know any of the music shit. It's not a bad thing to know, like, Bach, like the basics, but any time they go into a very long conversation about composers or theory or whatever, does not matter beyond the base fact that they are talking a lot of names. Lydia Tarr drops a lot of fucking names in this movie. Don't worry about it. Just focus on the fact that she's doing it. So there's that. And then it also wants to go into, I kind of lost my train of thought there. I don't know if I was going to an actual point, but it tackles this idea that basically everything is more complicated than we make it out to be. Whether you're on Lydia's side in this scene or you're on this fucking student's side in the scene. And I was on Lydia's side for the most part. Like, I will still say this, I think Lydia was in the right in her message. Not necessarily how she put forward that message. And of course, if you haven't seen the movie, you'll get to it. It's not a spoiler. It's fairly early on. It's kind of it's a setup. It's part of the setup of the film. But I was on Lydia's side. I mean, I thought, yeah, she's right. Does she communicate that message correctly? Maybe, maybe not. But she is, at the base level, correct. And so I found that fascinating because then what you're meant to do throughout the film is clue into who she really is as a person. And you start to, it kind of snowballs. All this information that you're getting snowballs into an understanding of who Lydia Tarr is and how it differs from the public view of her and how that evolves, and her own kind of the personality that she puts out there, the character that she's created. And it's interesting because it's kind of, you have these movies like Glass Onion and The Menu that take on, kind of this kind of class warfare, kind of eat the rich mentality. And the way that they caricaturize these people, the rich specifically, it's fairly one-sided. It's a very, very one-sided. You look at Edward Norton in Glass Onion, and it's like, yeah, fuck that guy. You look at all the diners minus yeah, but what's her? I can't think of the actress's name. But yeah, aside from Margot, you're meant to say fuck that person, fuck that person, fuck that person in particular. It's very, there might be little intricacies like in Glass Onion. I feel like with not Edward Norton, fuck him, but the rest of the characters in that film, there is some nuance to it, but it's not a lot. They're really just caricatures, which is fine. That's what that movie set out to do. And Tar takes a very different approach. For one thing, it does not hold your hand. You could conceivably walk out of this movie, and depending on your personal preferences, your opinions on various social justice movements and whatever, you could conceivably walk out of this with a completely different view of the character. I don't think a lot of people would, but it is something you could do. Because it again, Todd Field is not interested in walking you through this. He just presents it to you and gives you the story of this woman and her, kind of contending with basically social justice. I don't want to get too much into it, but that's the broad strokes of it. But that being said, a lot of people, I'm running out of time here. A lot of people I've seen frame it as the anti-Me Too movie. It's not that. That's fucking stupid. If that's what you take out of Tar, I think I'm not going to say you're an idiot, but you definitely need to reevaluate how you interact with media, and reconfigure, consider what level of media literacy you're at, because that's not what this movie is at all. Does it contend with social justice? Yes. Does it take a one-sided approach? Not really. It takes a complicated approach. I do think that Todd Field has a voice in the matter. I did also see some reviews, some sort of pseudo-intellectual reviews, that suggested Todd Field was not kind of being one-sided at all, like that he was not giving any real opinion on the matter, and I think that's very wrong. And that kind of ties in, although I'm not going to explain how it ties in, that does tie into another thing that I love about Tar. And that's that it is not the movie that you think it's going to be, even in the first, 15, 30 minutes. Eventually, it gets to a place where it transcends genre to a degree. Not like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it's like going all over the fucking place. It does have a specific voice that it's going for, but it slowly transforms into a different genre of film. And I don't know how to put this. Okay, I can say it's effective. It turns into a bit of a horror story. Don't take that too literally, but it does kind of turn into a horror story. And I was not expecting that. I was expecting, Lydia Tarr, she's, a conductor. This is what conductors do. And, she becomes part of some sort of cancel culture thing. And really, that's really just an impetus for events. And a means of exploring the downfall of a character. And really, I saw another review that was talking about how this was almost like a Raging Bull type film. It was like a Martin Scorsese film. Because Martin Scorsese, he always has these films that are about character downfalls. And I was like, yeah, that's a really apt way of putting it, because it is the story of a downfall, which again, I don't think is a spoiler per se. It's more about how you get there and how that downfall forms and takes place and how she reacts to it. And the way that it's set up and put forward, there's a point in the film, there's a specific scene. And for those who have seen the movie, it's the scene with the dog. You know what I'm talking about. And it's a scene where it suddenly feels like you're entering a completely different dimension. And suddenly things start to change in interesting ways. And you can even, some people have done, there's an article that has some screenshots that I think was maybe Variety or Vulture, one of those, that digs into this more with evidence from the film. It becomes kind of spooky, and that's not to say that it's not a horror film per se, but it's also not a straight drama. It's not a, it's not really a mystery. It's not a thrill. Like it just doesn't. It doesn't give a fuck about preconceived notions of what a film like this is supposed to be. And I think that's fantastic. I just realized it's really hard to describe this movie without spoiling it. But this is one of those times where I will say that people who give this negative reviews almost definitely, at least the ones I've read, do not understand what they watched. It's so fascinating in so many ways, and I'm just gonna say it. Kate Blanchett deserves that Oscar. Like, I don't want to say that because obviously, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity for Michelle Yeoh, but she really fucking nails it, man. She really fucking just decimates. She's so good and gets so much across. So that's another thing, actually. This is just a technique thing. So this is something I can talk about without spoiling anything. The film is so good at little moments and knowing when and how to get across these little moments of aggression, these moments of knowing. And some of it's very obvious. There's a lot of close-up shots of her wife and the orchestra during certain moments where you're like, eh. But then there's just Kate Blanchett by herself contending with whatever it is. There's that scene in the park, the Blair Witch scene, I think we can call it. There's any time she's trying to find the sounds or she's hearing something. And just her reactions to people and situations, the neighbor, for example. I'm making it sound more spooky than it is. But I just don't want to spoil anything. And anyway, the way that Todd feels, because Todd, it's a beautiful film, but it's not aside from there's a one shot that's amazing. It's but actually I'll even tell you what it is, so you pay attention to it, so it doesn't sneak up on you. The scene where she is teaching at Juilliard, which is the scene with the student that she talks to, is all just one take or one shot. I don't know how many takes there were, and it is bonkers because there's a point where it goes from the orchestra, little small orchestra that they're using, over to where the students are seated, and it just kind of is going everywhere in this room, and it's going back on stage and then following, and it's, if you're just paying attention to the camera and what it's doing, and then also what all is happening in the scene, because there's a lot happening. It's insane. But that's the one time that's really showy, I think. I could be wrong. If I go back, I could watch it again, and maybe there is another scene or shot that really would blow my mind if I could think about it right now. But there's that one shot. But otherwise, it's not a very showy movie. It's very assured. It's very precise. It knows exactly what it needs to do. It knows exactly how it needs to get across its information, and it just hits every beat perfectly. It is staggering, and it's buoyed quite a bit by Kate Blanchett's performance. I could watch Lydia Tarr just be a big old bitch and talk about whatever the music shit she's talking about and just going about her fucking day. I could watch that for hours and hours and hours and hours, because Kate Blanchett's so good. So, yeah, very precise. I would say, just to cut to the chase, this is my second favorite movie of 2022. But I would almost say that it's tied for first. And so I would say that Babylon is my favorite messy movie of 2022, and Tar is my favorite precise movie of 2022. Because Babylon, while I fucking love it and I think it's perfect, is messy. It swings for the fences, and not everything quite works the way it wants it to work, but it all comes together as an entertaining and very emotionally charged whole. You know, it's just a film that when you just sit it down and you look at it, you're like, you know, you could probably have done a few things better. You know, you could have cut here and you could have, you know, made adjustments there. But I still would not change a single fucking thing. Whereas Tar, I'm like, I don't even know how the fuck, like, that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know how my two favorite movies are so long, but here we are. Yeah, let's see. I'm glad I can sort of freestyle a review. I was kind of scared that I would be able to say anything, but I do wish we had someone who had seen Tar in the chat, because I could really use the backup. But, you know, I would say definitely this is a theater movie. Oh yeah, 2022 was a fucking stellar year for movies. Like, if you hear anyone say that there weren't any good movies in 2022, slap them in the fucking face. You have my permission. Slap them in the face. Because they're wrong. And that's what you do to people who are wrong. You slap them in the face. But it is a theater movie in so much as it does take a while to get going. Like, I'm glad that I figured out the kind of central joke pretty early on. So I kind of let's say you kind of you have to adapt to it, and I adapted very early on, and I'm glad I did. There is a different universe where I did not adapt immediately, but if you can adapt to it and appreciate what it's doing, because like the first two like long scenes are just two people talking, and this goes in again to its lack of showiness. It's just shot, reverse shot, shot, reverse shot, shot, reverse shot. They're in the scene where she's eating with I don't even know if they eat anything, but but when she's at the table with Mark Strong, like there's one moment where they break the line and they switch up what side of the frame each of them are on. Just I think to really hit home on one point that, again, I don't want to spoil anything. But like that's the big flourish of that scene is they switch sides. That's it. And so it's two scenes that total probably half an hour of just two people talking. And it's, especially in the Mark Strong scene, not terribly interesting talk. It's just talking. A lot of talking, a lot of Lydia Tarr being fucking full of herself. And like, you know, just spouting off names that I don't know who the fuck they are. And if you can understand that you are meant to kind of, you know, is that a spoiler? I think it's safe to say that, I think it's not a big spoiler to say that Lydia Tarr is a bit full of it. But not in like, again, this isn't like, the film is not overly critical of Lydia Tarr. There is more to her than her negatives. But how far you go in either direction is really more on you than anything that the film is suggesting. So when I say she's full of it, it's not to the degree you might think in a less nuanced film, let's say. But she is decidedly full of it. There are a lot of downbeat movies up for Oscars, but I would say Tar is not downbeat. Tar is not downbeat at all. It is a bit, you know, it's there's a chunk of it that is fairly serious, but you can, like, it is kind of a big joke. Like, I don't want to dig too much into this because I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but it really, like, it's all a build up to a gag. You know, it's like, this isn't a one-to-one comparison, but think of, like, There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood, you know, technically a drama, is basically just a big joke. And it ends with a big punchline. And that's kind of what Tar does. Not, again, not one-to-one, but there is that similarity to some degree. Where, you know, people who are not reading it correctly could see it as a very serious drama and just that. But that would be a huge disservice to what the director is doing. You know, you're meant to find humor in these things. And I think that Tar is definitely a fun film. And also, I mean, like, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a heaping load of fun. What the fuck else is nominated? It doesn't matter. Maybe that's why Babylon wasn't nominated. It wasn't downbeat enough. Brian, you've never seen There Will Be Blood? What the fuck? What the fuck, man? Like, that's not obvious. Like, there is no shame in not seeing a classic piece of cinema. There is no shame. I'm just sometimes shocked when certain people have not seen certain films. But we are talking about a young man, youngish man who I think is older than me, who had before today not seen Paths of Glory, had not seen A Clockwork Orange. What was another one? There was another big one you hadn't seen, Brian. That's true. Top Gun and Avatar are a lot of fun. There's plenty. Really, it's I think. I'm not going to spoil There Will Be Blood since Brian's in chat, but 100% the ending to There Will Be Blood is a joke. It's a dark joke, no doubt about it. Like, it's a dark movie, like, but you know, it's basically black humor. Yeah, I think There Will Be Blood is pretty fucking funny. There's a lot that's not funny, you know. The parental aspect isn't very funny. The stuff with Eli is fucking hilarious, though. But now that when you've mentioned all the movies, I don't think there's really that many downbeat movies nominated this year. I think it's a fairly strong mix of types of films. And of course, I haven't seen Banshees of Inisherin yet. I will get to that. I'm going to try my best. You know, it's not going to be tonight. Tonight I have to go and do my Thursday night Thrashers at Rounder and Shannon's, where we're going to be probably watching a Jess Franco movie, I feel like. Which, by the way, I had a this is unrelated to Tar, but I had a really obvious realization today, and I can't believe I didn't think of it. So I'm doing these short reviews. Retroactive was my test video, and I have 4 more already written, ready to be shot. And I realized I should just start doing the Jess Franco movies in order. I was going to save it as like a thing that I do, you know, after I hit like 100 movies, but I think I'm going to start going through the Franco canon from the beginning. And I'll probably just skip the ones that don't have anything available. But I've been able to track down a few movies that are kind of, you know, a bit more, you know, they don't have any releases, so I gotta be a little, you know, creative. But I've now seen 51 Jess Franco movies. I think I'm just gonna start adding those to my review list. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Oh, by the way, I got a haircut. This is also unrelated to Tar, but I got a haircut down at Sinister Salon in Las Vegas, Nevada. Highly recommend. Great guys. Anyway, so Tar. I don't know. It's so hard to talk. Wait, I'm gonna really quickly. I'm not going to show this because there might be spoilers. But I'm going to bring up the Letterboxd reviews that I liked and see if there's anything that I can say that's not a fucking spoiler, because it's just tough. It's tough. Reviews you liked. Let's see. Esther Rosenfield on Letterboxd said it's much more interesting as a film about guilt and how prestige and acclaim can make a person think their actions have no consequences. And I think, yeah, that's a much better way of interpreting it than just it's anti-Me Too. Yeah, I think, you know, we have a problem with media literacy in this country. I don't know if y'all know that. You probably do. And yeah, it is much more a film about guilt and prestige. It's about power dynamics. It's a film very much about power dynamics and how that can affect. Oh god, this is so tough. Basically, think about what a conductor is. You know, they're conducting an orchestra. The orchestra is made up of all these musicians. And consider the fact that the film begins with acknowledgments to the entire crew and not the actors or director. And you kind of get an idea of where it's coming from, what the central conceit of the film is. And I don't think knowing that going in is a problem. I think that actually could help, because my one big issue, it's not an issue with the film per se, but I immediately wanted to rewatch it because when I kind of figured out what it was about, there were already all these scenes where I didn't know, and I really, 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 really wish I could have applied proper context to the film from the film's intentions to these scenes. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of reviews talking about guilt. Guilt is definitely a big part of it. You know, the way that someone in power can use that power for ill, whether they know it or not, is a big part of it. And I think that at the end of the day, if you're really gonna break down like what it's a critique of, it's about power and how people abuse that power and how power can corrupt others. And that's, I think, without getting into the spoilery bullshit, that's the central conceit of the film, is how power dynamics work, and, you know, trying to look at it all from the point of view of that person in power. And then it goes off the fucking rails. With one of the great endings. One of the great endings. Which I did not understand at first. Pay close attention to the opening acknowledgments, because it does kind of hint at what happens at the end. Very subtly. But I didn't get sort of a cultural reference at the end when I first watched it, and so I was a bit confused about the ending. I got the broad strokes of it, like I got the base intention, but I didn't fully understand one aspect of it because I did not know the reference point. And then I looked it up. I was like, "What? Okay, what happened at the end of Tar? Like, what all happened?" And then it pointed out what the cultural reference was, and I was like, "Oh, come on!" And it made it so much better too. Like, if I had known, I wish I had known it going in, because I think I would have popped a little bit more at the ending. But that said, without that cultural understanding, or pop cultural understanding, really, I still was just like, yes, queen, slay, it's lit, whatever. So yeah, and there's a lot to delve into just as far as like what's going on underneath the surface in the film. It's a rewatch a fuck a ton movie. Like, there's so much to pull from subtext, character actions, character intentions. You know, characters end up in a place where you're like, oh, I need to go back and rewatch this conversation so I can better grasp, like, was this hinted at? How did this evolve? Was there a hint? It's stuff like that where it's just like it's challenging in a way where, you can, if you have, again, that base media literacy, you can understand where it's coming from. But then beyond that, it's fairly simple. It's a very, if you break it down to just beats, it's a very simple film. But then when you add in visual subtext, script subtext, kind of performance subtext, like all these things that are happening as you're figuring out what's going on, when you add them all together, like there's just a treasure trove of new things to explore and discover when you go back for a second, third, fourth viewing, which is tough when it's 2.5 fucking hours long, but that's beside the point. I love Tar. I think again, I was shocked by how much I loved it. I shouldn't be. Todd Field takes his time with movies. He's like if Terrence Malick wasn't kind of insufferable sometimes. He just takes his fucking time. And then he delivers a precise as shit fuck movie. I don't know what that means, but precise as shit fuck, print it on a t-shirt. He's just like, job here's done. You look at it and you're like, fuck yeah, it is. So yeah, Tar. I love the child actor. Plays her daughter. She's great. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about spoilers for this at some point. I'm definitely going to nab the 4K and rewatch it when I have the time. I don't know when that would be, but when I have the time. Maybe late February. Late February. Up through the 15th, I'm pretty fucked. So let's say late February. But yeah, that was a short stream. I don't really have much more to say. I'm very tired. This has been a very long day. But I wanted to stream something. Phantom Thread. That's another one. Who said that? Jake Bart on Letterboxd in a spoilery review said that it brought to mind Phantom Thread. And again, it's not a one-to-one, but similar sense of humor, I think, to Phantom Thread, which is another phenomenal movie. That was, I think, my favorite movie of whatever fucking year that came out. But yeah, I'm going to go now because I have to go watch Jess Franco with a bunch of weirdos in a room. And yeah, I just like talking about things. And I guess if you want me to go off the cuff more with these and just do some like live reviews of stuff, we can certainly talk about things that more of my audience has seen. And, not do these all of a sudden and actually schedule them and shit. So just let me know in the comments what you would like to see me review off the cuff. And guys, until next time, go watch a movie, preferably Tar.